Hey folks, welcome back. So this week we are going to go over how to take your bandsaw blades from this to this. So when you're starting off learning how to coil a bandsaw blade, it may be helpful to start off with something like an old pulley belt instead of trying to do it with your actual bandsaw blade first. One is because, well, this doesn't have any teeth on it, and I recall that the first time I was trying to coil my bandsaw blades, I'm kind of doing it like this because I don't want to end up looking like Scarface or something. So with this, you don't have to worry about it catching you or anything. It's not going to cut you open. Another benefit of starting with this is that it is much more flexible, and it practically just wants to coil up on its own without you even having to do much. So it's a lot easier to get the hang of how to do it with this thing. So what you're going to do is I like to grab, around maybe a third of kind of the length of the belt, and you're going to hold it out in front of you, kind of like this. And then, as you can see, this thing is so floppy, it's wanting to kind of go over on its own like I mentioned. But what you're going to do is you're going to kind of give it a flip down, and then at the same time you're going to roll both of your wrists in, and this is going to create 3 different loops. So you get one out of this, one out of here, and then you have a third loop that kind of comes in underneath. So to show that again, you're going to flip it down, bring it around, roll both the wrists in, and then you end up with 3 loops, and these weren't super equally sized, but that's how that happens. Now, when you're doing this with your bandsaw, since those are metal, they are much, much stiffer, and you actually really have to give it a good flick downwards in order for it to flip around like this. But the concept is exactly the same, and this is just an easier way to see how to do it. So now we are going to graduate on from our pulley belt to the real deal here and see if we can't do it with this thing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is grab yourself a pair of gloves. I just had a pair of welder gloves real handy here, so this is what we're going to use. And they're nice and thick too. Now trust me when I say whenever you're dealing with a bandsaw blade, well, just in general, but especially one that is sharp, one that's brand new, always put on your gloves. I know from experience, and that's enough said with that. So exact same thing. I'm just gonna kind of grab a comfortable amount of our band here, and you can see that it's pretty stiff. It's not like the pulley belt that was just wanting to droop right over on its own. This, to get it to do anything, you really got to give it a good snap downwards. Now I generally rest the back of it kind of against my belt there. You do want to be careful because if this is sharp, it will just rip up your shirt if you aren't careful. But we're just going to do the exact same thing. We're going to give it a flick down, and then at the same time kind of roll your wrist in, and we should end up with a nicely coiled bandsaw band. There you go. My loops aren't quite evenly sized, but that's how it's done. So now you can watch me very gracefully uncoil it. I'm sure I could get a little bit better at that part of it, but we'll do this one more time just for demonstration purposes. So again, kind of grab a comfortable amount on there, give it a nice sharp flip down, and then roll your wrist in at the same time. And there you have it. It's pretty easy, takes a little bit of practice. I don't get it every single time, but most of the time it does go around on the first try. If it doesn't work, it's generally because I didn't give it quite enough of a flick downwards to get it to wrap around, but you know, just once you do it a few times, you kind of get the hang of it, and it's not too bad after that. So hopefully this was helpful in learning how to coil your bandsaw blades. This is really, really handy. It saves a lot of space, and especially if you're kind of stacking some used bands off to the side before you sharpen them or something, this keeps them a lot more contained. It's also easier to move them around. You don't have this big, 12-foot circumference band, or even larger than that, kind of flopping around when you're trying to move things around. So that about covers it for this. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.